third person and standing out of the gauge con. It's important, okay? Safety first.
But look at this. I'm a rule breaker. I'm just.
Ooh, he's in danger.
He's
in danger. Look at you. You'd totally get nailed by a silent train if one were to come.
Ghost train.
Ghost.
The murderous ghost train. It
you
murdered
would be
all
shocked.
the people.
We're literally shocked how quiet they are.
What are we dressed as? We're dressed as conductors.
Yeah, vaguely, kind of.
We're
yes.
vague conductors.
According to Turbo Squid, this is an Old West train conductor. So.
Okay, interesting. Today we're gonna build a hump yard.
Yep.
We're gonna hump. We're doing a candid intro today, Hyce. Candid.
Yeah, just straight candid. Yeah.
Straight into the humping is what's gonna happen.
We're just gonna get right into the humping. We made sure that we're gonna have enough space.
Oh yeah, I laid out a
humping.
really long straight track in this flat valley because it kind of seems like an awesome space to build a giant yard. Compared to the freight depot,
exactly.
this is massive, and I don't honestly know anything about hump yards other than the fact that they sound funny. And well, no, okay.
Yes.
I understand you push cars up a hill and then they go down the hill with gravity, and then my understanding of the modern ones is they have brakes built into the track itself so they can brake the cars where they want them to. But basically they go down this hill and you stop the cars and you can use it to assemble trains. Right?
Exactly.
But
yeah.
I don't really understand the geometry of it beside that point. Now, because Railroads Online is really weird and we don't really have a need to assemble loaded trains, we're going to use it to hump empties. So we can have ideally one lane for each of the different types of empty cars, and then we can hump them into the appropriate lane to sort of reassemble trains. And then when we want to, take a train out, we just cut it and pull it off the end of the hump and re-hump more later. There's a lot of humping going on.
Yeah, and it's definitely the thing that makes the most sense for Railroads Online because everything's unit trains and everything pretty much running the other way from the freight depot that we've already got built is going to be just dedicated train set running that way. But when you start getting more to the oil field, it's like you don't need a whole train of boxcars. You don't really need a whole train of steel pipes. So it's like you end up with this mixed freight that's moving around. And so being able to sort those cars is going to be really helpful. And really the only opportunity to realistically use one of these in some sort of operational sense that makes, any amount of sense, at least in the game.
Yeah, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I do plan on deleting that track and bringing it all the way back and having the loop at the end of the hump lane. So every time we come in now, we're going to have to drive through the hump yard or past the hump yard and go around it and then come back.
It's going to make it nice and long.
Yeah, just a really long, people got to really enjoy the experience. You know what I mean? Like we got to really commit to the humping.
Precisely.
So yeah, this is how far we got. I got a straight line. We can't go any further left of this because it gets close to that valley at the end of this.
Gotcha. So the yard's going to go to the right of that. We got plenty of space there.
Yeah.
It's probably way plenty of length there. I guess the question is, do we want the hump on this end or do we want it on the other end?
I don't understand how the hump... So my biggest problem with understanding the hump geometry is where does the locomotive go? Because if you want to hump empties, you need to have the locomotive, does it pull them up a hill and then just let them go? Or does it push, it would make sense to push them up the hill, right? But then how do you...
Yeah.
So you have to have your locomotive... if I'm coming... Let's say I'm coming in with a full train. So choo-choo, here I come in this direction, right? My locomotive's out in front. Now what? So I'm here. I've got a loco in front.
I'm gonna make a diagram for you real quick.
Uh-oh. Are you drawing it in real life or are you drawing
I'm drawing it with track real quick.
Okay.
So, on the real set of hump yards, or on a real hump, you have a dedicated drill track, again, for your switcher to go live in, right? And sometimes, it depends on the operation, and it depends on exactly what the railroad wants to do and everything.
Oh my god, that's
and how big the hump is. That's a 10% just for fun, just to get the point across. The switcher could live off of this stub.
Right.
Or he could live off of a stub behind here where he could run into a inbound track. So we have a passing track in between these two tracks.
Right, which would probably make sense to have.
Road engine comes in, drops their cars off, they cut and run to mechanical to go get serviced. Right. And then whatever the yard good is can then come in, grab those cars, back down the drill track that has access to all of the yard tracks, including the hump, and then he can shove over the hump. And then as they go over...
so the drill track in this case is really long. We need
It's really long, so you could fit an engine and cars and everything on it, yeah.
So ideally we should move this switch.
Here.
We should move this switch further down.
I mean, it depends on exactly where we want the yard to be. We got plenty of length going that way.
Or we should
I mean,
have this divert and then go back into a parallel line to this line, basically.
Yeah, so you'd want to have basically something where it would be the start of the track for the switcher. So you'd want to, yeah, get it curved like that. But then we want to build, rather than having a switch like that, we're going to want to have a switch that links on the straight end.
Well, don't we want this to be straight for a while?
No, so this doesn't let the switcher get there is the thing. So put the switch back, and we'll get rid of this piece of track here.
What do you mean doesn't let the switcher?
Put the switch back like you just had.
Right. Okay. I'm
You're
thoroughly
just
confused.
Listen to the directions, Con. All right. So then this switch. Now delete your switch, and then we're going to build a just connect the piece with a piece of track.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So see the switcher that's going to be coming off somewhere other than the main needs to be able to get at the back of the train here. So you need to be able to pull past
now
this
this
switch.
track we make long enough for the train to basically come in, and then we switch it back onto the main at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So this will be kind of like your departure track or arrival and departure track.
This drill track here can go back really to like a little switch with an engine shed or something.
This is still going to be the lead, but yes, ultimately it can get there. The drill track is just the straight track at the very end. So this is going to be the hump lead is what we're going to call this. So as this goes up this way, we're going to have another switch, and then that'll be the switch for the hump itself, and then we can have the drill track beyond that. And the switcher
so
can
if
live at the end of the
I
track
can build
there or
this
whatever.
straight out parallel for a crazy distance.
Yeah, long enough that any train that we're conceivably going to run can pull in and fit. So, something like 20 cars maybe. I guess maybe we'll run more than 20 someday, but...
Well, right, or the other... Right, because this is the track that if you have like a 50-car train, you're going to park it on this track and then take it in cuts to do the hump. Depending on how big your drill
just
track
what train it is and how many tracks in the hump we have and everything.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm going to build this really as long as I possibly can, is really where it's at.
Yeah, basically, whatever you got space for, which is kind of how a lot of yards end up being, made, actually. You look at yards and it's like, well, how much space did they have? That's what they did. There you go. That's the way it works.
Yeah, so far I'm at 350 meters, and, it despawned. Okay, so 350 meters. That's a big spline.
You're going to need to have another track for another lead track, or another switch for another lead track like we have down at this end.
Wait, I need a lead track on this end, too?
Yeah, because you have to have the flat side and you have to have the hump side.
Okay.
So on the real thing, you have cars that say do not hump, which I made that silly video about, where they can't be sent over the hump because they're filled with breakable things or they're packaged in some way or they're crew cars or whatever that shouldn't go over the hump. And so those cars need to be added in from the flat end. And then also, very typically in railroad operations, you have things go wrong and you have things that end up in the wrong track, and you need to be able to deal with those without then trying to bring them up and over a really steep hill again, or that whole cut of cars again. And so they'll switch from the flat end with that. So you need to have leads on both ends. How'd we screw this up?
They're not parallel. Somehow they're not the same width at the front and the back. Somehow, it widens. They should be the width of two switches, but for some reason at the other end, they don't. I put two switches and they don't line up anymore, so might have to fix this.
So you're telling me
two parallel lines are no longer parallel when they get to the end, but I don't...
Mirroring assets before you import them into a game is really hard? Was that what you're telling me?
Maybe. How are you doing chopping trees? You doing good? You having a good time?
I'm doing good. I still couldn't link tracks, so I figured I'd just come be a lumberjack instead. So the two lead styles will be a little bit different as well. The hump has what's sort of like a nested lead of switches.
Right.
Where you're trying to make the car run through as few switches as possible to get to its destination.
And that's just so you reduce friction type deal? Is that...
No, it's just so you can reduce complexity in moves. So when you're trying to, line switches for the setup, you don't want to have to go, okay, well, we've got a 60-track yard, and it runs through all 60 of the lead switches that are placed just end to end to end to end. You want to nest them, so it's like, okay, well, it goes through the main left or right switch, and then it has... okay, second left or right switch to, going to nested groups of track so that you have fewer decision points. So in the early days, when you're talking about, humans being out there lining the switches. Okay, well, you only need so many people, and they can each have a zone of the hump to take care of. So you have the first switch that goes from the bottom of the hump to left and right, and then each of those has a switch, and then that gets you 4 tracks, and then each of those has a switch, and etc.
So it's basically like you go
wrong,
like left,
yeah.
left, right, left, A, B, start, unlimited lives.
Exactly. So you're only picking so many switches to run through rather than just running down the straight side. But typically on the flat end, it'll be set up in the more conventional way where you have all of the switches just straight in a line. Maybe it's left and right, but you have them all set up in a line that way. And that way it's easier for the train crew to visually see what's going on, and they're not trying to read points that are kind of confusing when they're nested into that setup.
All right, well, while I lay out this extremely amazingly straight line, which now I think is actually the proper distance to do the switching, which is great. I had a comment, and I'm going to look it up. Someone asked me to ask you about something, and it seemed very specific, and I wasn't sure what it was. So
okay.
let me just pull this up here.
Ask me anything.
I would love to hear Hyce tell Khan about the great locomotive chase of 1862. Why is that a thing? Was there a
that is actually a
there was a great locomotive
thing.
Chase?
Yes, there was. It was American Civil War era, where I can't remember the exact details of what caused the chase, whether it was spies in the north that were in the south or what it was. But they ended up, spies basically stole a locomotive and ran with it. With some car of either there was valuables or they were just planning to destroy the rail line or something. I don't remember enough of the details. I wish you could have briefed me on this.
I totally forgot about it until we were just doing a mundane task. Don't worry, you got time. You can look it up and
I can, but I don't know. It's fun to always just try and recall what you can off the top of your head too. But
all right,
it's a
the
neat
switches
story
down here anyway. So
it's a neat story because I mean they literally chased them back with a second locomotive, and it was quite the ordeal back in the day, and it was a
like
good
down
story.
A single track, like a single line,
single track railroad, 2 engines, one of each side of the battle. And I'm sure everyone in the comments is now going to have the field day of field days with the full answer for us.
And what they were just chasing each other down the same track. Like, were they both aiming forwards, or was it more comedic? Like one was in reverse and.
I'm struggling to remember what was the.
It seems
history.
like it's right out of a cartoon. You know what I mean? Like it's
not... so Buster Keaton, early film star and everything, was a part of a movie called The General that did the depiction of this event. And so I'm struggling to remember the facts from the movie, which was just having fun and trying to tell the spirit of the story, and then the actual event that happened itself. And I can't recall which is which. But at least in the movie, they do end up a little bit both ways. But I'm not sure exactly how that worked out with the real thing back in the day. I'm going to have to look up some details here so I don't get crucified in the comments too hard.
All right, so we have a 500-meter long passing track.
Okay.
So my train comes in here. I've got a bunch of empty cars. I park the train on this line. I cut my road engine off, and it disappears into inevitably some sort of roundhouse area that we've got going on.
Yep.
And then now you've got a line of empties here, and we're going to pull the empties all the way back this track?
Yep.
Wouldn't we need a huge track for that then?
Yep.
So we should probably do this. We should probably have this switch cut in a little further up that line then, right?
You could have it cut in further up the line. There's a lot of different ways to do it. We could have
because we're going to run out of space here. Otherwise, we have tons of space this way. So we should move that up then.
We can do that. Yeah, I guess we do. We will run out of space.
And then that because we're going to run out of space here. We're only going to be able to cut like 10 cars at a time then that way.
Yeah, which is not ideal. So cut it in a little bit later. Make it a little bit longer here. And then, yeah, sometimes they would have the inbound tracks like before the hump so that it would be more linear, but we're kind of dealing with the space that we have in the game with what makes sense. So it's all sorts of interesting. I'm trying to set up the spacing on all the lanes here. We want to do what we were thinking about 8, right?
Yeah, but wouldn't the lanes be like further down the other way?
Yes, but we can build them off of this. I just need to know where the actual hump lead is going to be. Because
my only concern is we're going to potentially run into a hill. Look on the right there. There's a little bit of a hill we have to get past.
Oh, I'm seeing that. Yeah.
But I don't know. So if I put a switch up here now, right? So if I have a switch,
well, then let me come build up there. I'll just delete everything I worked so hard.
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we actually have to space them using switches, not using crossover pieces, because the crossover piece spacing and the switch spacing is not. Let me. So if I do this, and I do this, see how they don't line up by like an inch? All right, so we can connect. You can connect that up to there, and I'll connect this one up to the other direction, and then this is okay. So now this makes sense. Then our hump lead can go back and kind of wrap towards the freight depot, so we could really hump a huge train.
Yeah, I like humping big trains. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun too.
You've humped trains in real life before?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. That's like crazy.
I was just being silly. When I worked with a railroad, I worked for BNSF, which is the biggest railroad in North America.
Right.
Or actually, I say that, but one of the Canadian railroads might be more track. I don't know. At least
Canada's
the
a pretty big
States.
place. I hate to be there.
Yeah.
We have a lot of volume of stuff.
BNSF didn't have the biggest hump in the States. I think UP has the biggest yard, but the hump yard at Kansas City I did spend some time at, and it's pretty impressive. It's called the Argentine Yard, and the bowl, which is where all the shunt lanes in the hump live, is 68 tracks wide.
That's a lot.
So it's a lot of tracks. But
how long are they? Like kilometers or like what?
It's probably, to use metric, they would probably be 1.5 kilometers or 2 kilometers long if I had to guess.
That's insane. All right, so
might be wildly off base, but should be close.
Road engine comes in here straight.
Yep.
Main line is on the left. Road engine comes in here straight. Parks on this siding. Unloads, gets back on the main, and screws off.
Yep.
Engine comes in from behind on this track, picks up cars from behind, and pulls them backwards onto a track that I'm going to go that just ends in a dead end.
Yeah, precisely.
But it's really long, basically.
So if I space things out using switches just in a ladder like this, is the spacing okay?
It should be, yeah. The thing is you have to do it with the switches because then we can switch, like reverse switch it back, right?
Okay,
I
gotcha.
think.
So I can space them out this way because I need to kind of find center in order to make the hump make some amount of sense. There's going to be a lot of actual spline track in the middle between the switches, but I gotta get all 8 lanes figured out.
I'm bringing this line in at a curve so that I can make it like a little longer. I feel like that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, that's pretty commonplace. If you ran out of space, you have to have the
it's going to be like 100-meter radius or some nonsense, like 150. It'll be a big...
Dude, we're in the yard. It doesn't matter what radius you pick.
Right, because we're going like slow as sin. Like we're not...
Yeah, we're not trying to send it here. Yard speed is usually, by rule, depending on the kind of yard or facility, is somewhere between 5 and 15 miles an hour top speed.
Wow.
So
okay.
Pretty slow. Most yards are actually more at the 10, 15.
But what happens? What happens when you have to put it in notch 8?
Because it's 39 cars. Well, sometimes it's 39 cars, and it'll take you a while at notch 8 to get up to speed. There must be 39 really heavy cars when you've got 2 4,400 horsepower locomotives on the front end. It stares at unstoppable, but it's fine.
4,400 horsepower. That's just ridiculous.
That's like that's pretty much the bog standard locomotive these days. Is 4,400 horsepower. It's just what they are.
12-wheel drive.
Depends. Yes, usually, not always.
Two sets of 6, right? Like
2 sets of 6, so 3 axles per truck. So 12 wheels total. But the interesting thing is that some of them don't. Oh goodness, I can already see what you're saying. The spacing's weird. Although the spacing between a crossover versus switches in
yeah, they're all different.
Okay, well.
Bro, our lead line for this hump yard, it goes all the way back and touches the freight depot.
Beautiful. I like it. Yeah, so some
I'm also
modern
realizing I can
locomotives...
redo this entire curve now too. It doesn't need to bow out to curve back over because it can just...
Oh, it's true, because it's not doing a loop anymore, is it?
Yeah, it's not going to do a loop here. It's going to loop at the end. I'll fix it. Don't worry. While
We
I
get to it,
come
it's
back
fine.
and admire your beautiful shunt work, just watch out for that hill because we might have to
It's
go past.
we're avoiding it right now, but we will see. Right now, I'm trying to figure out where my center is. So I got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lanes. So this is like somewhere between 4
you said
and
you want to do an
5.
8-lane hump, right? Like that's what we're...
Yeah, that's what I'm going for. So we'll kind of figure out what it looks like from here now. But yeah, the modern engines, a lot of the people who do the math and come up with the ideas, people at GE came up with the idea that, okay, well, you can still put down the same horsepower theoretically with 4 traction motors. So 4 motors, 4 axles, but have the loading of 6. So they have an idler wheel set in between the 2 motors. So you have 4 powered axles on a 6-powered locomotive. And for most cases, like if you're hauling, higher speed, lighter tonnage, like intermodal trains with the stacked containers, those do pretty good. But any engineer who ever has run a coal drag with a bunch of heavy loaded coal hoppers and stuff will tell you that you don't get the same pulling power out of the 4 traction motor guys. And so they usually still use the older EMD power on the stuff that actually goes up.
You'd never get the same traction out of it anyway.
Right. Well, so they
because
do...
like you have a wheel in the middle that is basically absorbing some of your normal force, which is
It's true, but they do have some tricky engineering to help that make sense.
Like what, suspension, so the middle wheel doesn't actually do as much? Like, because no matter what, any weight that is on your middle wheel is weight that's not going to your normal force.
Yes.
Which is decreasing your friction.
The argument was that they weren't using all of the friction theoretically previously.
They weren't using all of the friction.
So they didn't need all the weight, but they did add a neat piece of engineering called the DWM system, which stands for like Delta Weight Management, or I don't remember exactly what it stands for. Someone will get me in the comments. Where they could actually dynamically, or maybe it's dynamic weight management, that makes more sense. They would dynamically raise and lower that middle wheel, not so much that it came off the track, but enough to put the extra weight on the pulling motors when they needed it.
Right, depending on
it's powered by a
a
cam and some air cylinders. People think they're more brake cylinders, but they're actually air cylinders that run.
This all
the
seems like
DWM
a lot of hooey to save motors. That's kind of what it...
Well, motors
this
do
seems like the
actually...
motor salesman trying to convince me that 4 motors is better than 6.
You're not wrong, but at the same time, motor failures are probably the most common big delay and crappy failure the railroad has to deal with.
Right.
If I had to guess from my experience with BNSF, yeah, that was never fun.
Are we ready to start humping yet, or what's the deal here?
We're getting close-ish.
I've got the track that we can pull back on and then flick over here.
I think we're gonna want to extend. So what I'm trying to place right now and figure out where to place is the first switch of the hump, and
that
I think
diverges
it can go about there
into all the others.
So if you build a hill, a steep hill, lighter on your side and then steeper on this side, maybe I'll give you a little 10% grade down off of this switch that you need to mate into, and then whatever it ends up being is what it ends up being. But this is kind of going to be where our hump is. So we'll have a transition piece to 10%, and then maybe that much 10% just so it's not stupid long. And then I'll give transition.
We can go more than that. Even at like 2% there, I had tons of space. We can go much bigger.
Okay.
Bigger hump.
Well, then you monkey with the geometry there if you'd like.
You should lay out your switches first, though, because you're going to run out of space to the left, aren't you?
No, I laid out my tracks, so this is smack in the center.
Spaced
so we should be
off that track.
Yeah, so it should work out. We'll see here. Hang on. You see what's going on here?
Yeah, the running distance, you're going to have to, if you want these to all be perfectly parallel lanes.
Oh, yeah. That's
which we can do. We're going to have to do some magical switch work. So this is where I would say cue the epic 1900s time-lapse music, and we just sort of do some fancy
Yes,
magic to make
we're gonna
we won't
we'll
build the
see in a
hump
minute,
yet,
folks.
but we'll just like parallel all this stuff up because it's gonna suck.
So after much deliberation,
Yeah, this all makes sense. This is exactly what it has to look like.
we now realized what we had to do, and
Yeah.
we started from the wrong end. You don't want to start from the fun humpy end.
No, you
You
want
wanna
to start from the
lane
non-humpy end.
Yeah, the non.
But remember, you got to get to that switch point over there. Like your switch coming off is that way, so you need this to.
Yeah. So right now I'm just kind of getting a vector diagram here of where exactly do I want to put the switch.
Right.
Because this is the first switch, and we realized like this is the least important one because it has nothing to do with parallel lanes or anything like that. So I kind of want to split the difference between these as best as I can.
All right, I'm getting the lane
Which is
started,
going to be
and then I'm going to delete
a little silly.
I'm going to get the lane started and then delete the excess nonsense that we've got going on here.
Unfortunately, I think that might be the best option.
All right, let me delete this.
Why does that feel like it's so much higher?
I don't know.
Because I think it is. Well, I mean, more gravity always helps, but I think I can probably just relay it. So I'm going to do that.
Shoot. Okay, doesn't matter.
Okay. And looking it over, I mean, that should probably be okay, but is there space for the hump in between now is the question. Probably
Yeah, I
should
mean,
be.
we want as big a hump as possible, right? So.
Yeah, we learned the pains of the bearings last time. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
well, if our hump is steep enough, then the back cars should just push the front ones forward, right? Like, if we have a nice 10% hump, then that should be...
Yeah, it really depends on how many cars we're cutting at a time, because, I mean, at least for us, it'll probably be big groups of cars. It won't necessarily be, like, one
Yeah,
or
like,
two
we're
or
not going to
something
cut...
like that, you know?
We're going to cut cars generally all of the same type. We're not going to hump two different types of cars if we don't have to, because what would be the point? You got to put them in two different lanes, right? Which, I guess, if they're doing a hump yard, you wouldn't do that. You'd hump everything going into the same lane at once, or would you hump multiple...
Well, so the whole point of the hump is to sort trains easily. You take a
Right.
manifest train that came from, you know, it's running to Chicago vaguely, but it stops in Kansas City, say, and it came from Seattle originally. Okay. A bunch of cars came from Seattle. Well, some of them need to go to Kansas City that need to be switched out by a local. Some of them are going to Chicago long term. Some of them are going to go back at certain ways or whatever. And so you need to split that train apart. So you're taking a train that's maybe 100 plus cars for various different destinations and trying to sort them by where they need to end up so that you can efficiently get the train to its destination.
But will they cut it on the hump, or will they hump the sections cut individually before?
Oh, well, so they absolutely cut it on the hump, because that's the whole point of the hump. The whole point is not to just run a train over the hill for the sake of funsies. The whole point is to make sure that you're actually cutting the cars and getting them to sort on the
So
hump. It's just a big sorting device.
When we get to the end of this episode, and we're inevitably going to grab all those empties that we have in those shunt lanes, we're going to assemble them all to one long train and hump it all at once, basically?
Yeah, we pull them with a switcher one time, and then we cut the cars as they go over the hill, line the switches, and make sure that they end up in the right track.
Okay. Is that a 10% hump? Is that what that is?
That is. I'm trying not to make it too stinking long because I don't know.
Our humps, so humps
What
are
we can get
short.
away with.
They're very, like, they're not a long...
They're usually pretty short, and they're not usually 10%. They're usually probably something more like 4 or 5%.
Right.
And
but
the cars,
rolling
I mean-
friction is, like, really easy in real life, right? So it's...
Well, yeah, we have roller bearings on our cars now, and so that's why we have brakes. Like, they can get going way too fast. I'm considering that we've got narrow gauge cars, and they're much shorter, and we also don't have so much space, which is more why I'm building this short.
All right, I'm going to go up at 2% just for fun.
Just for funsies.
And see where I end up. So
Yeah,
I end up
okay.
short of your hump at 2%.
Not, this is too tall still?
Well, I end up short of your hump by about maybe a foot. But, like, I can connect it up. If I go, let me see here. If I go, oh no, that's only because I'm in circle mode with it straight. But then if I turn it off circle mode, 2% actually puts me up above you.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, then we can ride a
This-
little bit
look,
longer
look at this.
then.
Look at this. This makes no sense. If it's zero radius, no, put your hump back. I can link to that. Yeah, it's if I go 0 radius in circle mode, 2% says I'm here.
Okay.
Straight. This is a straight line off the switch, right? Obviously, we're
Okay.
gonna have it bend a little bit, but
Yeah,
that's
it's got to do a bit of an S bend because
that's
reasons.
2% in circle mode. Okay. So that's putting it circle mode, radius 0, whatever. And that's where I end up. Okay. This is 2% outside of circle mode. So,
well, that makes objectively no sense.
So I don't know what's actually 2%.
Well,
so I'm just gonna link up to your 10. I feel like we could just link. That's a big enough hump, really. That's all we need is just.
It'll probably work.
All right, that actually looks pretty good. Comes up in a nice shallow S, and then we hump.
And then we do the hump.
And then we do the hump. All right, perfect. Then we hump them, pick the direction, hump into lanes. And then we got to extend the lanes, and how do we connect them all up at the end here?
So we'll just do like a normal yard ladder at the other end, where all the switches are just in a row, so that it's easy to switch out that way. And when you're going back in, back out,
then they go back onto the main
switches. Yeah. So the whole thing is, when you're trying to pick a lot of random different tracks really quickly, you want to throw all the switches in one place. So we put all the switches as close together as we could on this end.
Right.
But when you're deliberately going, okay, well, I need to grab stuff from lane 5 and put them on lane 2, or some cars from lane 5 and put them on lane 3, etc. You just want to throw those 2 switches, so it doesn't matter, and it's easiest to just put them in a line. So we'll just put, all the switches just bang, 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 bang in a line, connect the lanes up, and then we're there. So we're trying to keep our yard lead, we're trying to keep our yard lead separate from the main, right? So that's where it's going to come off of this. So we'll have another drill track off this way. And typically,
this would switch back, like would this do something like obviously a little further out, but it would do something like this and then connect back up to all the ladder switches?
Exactly, yes. And then depending on what side we want to put our shop on or our roundhouse on, and also how we want to do that, either we'd put it off of this lead separate from the drill track so that you can switch without fouling the roundhouse, or we'd put it on the other side.
But this drill track needs to be long enough to grab all of your train pieces, go completely straight with it, and then back it out completely, and then get onto the main?
Stick it out on this line here so that an engine can get put on it from either side, yeah.
So an engine would come from the roundhouse on this line, come in this way,
and they'd either do it before.
You'd have a yard engine that assembles the whole train onto this track, and then goes out of the way, and then your road engine comes in and picks it up and then leaves out the main.
Yep. Or the road engine goes first so that it can get all the way down at the other end, because we're just doing a single kind of arrival departure thing, right? And then the yard switcher puts it on top. So we're doing it a little bit differently than the modern day railroad would do, and that's just because of the way that the game is and the space, and there's not really any dedicated reason to have like a dedicated inbound and outbound yard and everything. So let's see about getting some switches figured out and see if we can't get the lead going, and we'll see in just a few minutes, folks.
Yeah.
It'll be 0 seconds on your end, but long time on our end. All right, so it's all built.
Yeah, it's built. You'll notice we don't have look at this, there's no main line anymore. There's only one main line coming into the freight depot. The rest is just open trees.
The only one, and we've got everything we own pretty much put in this train, including Betsy.
Yeah. Well, this is actually, the cursed 2-4. Oh, it's got a tender in the middle.
2-4-4-4-4.
Yeah. Well, the tender. What happened? You'd never have an engine with drive wheels like is there isn't an engine with drive wheels, idler wheels, and then drive wheels, is there?
Someone's gonna have an example
2-4-2-4, and then would you even call it a 2-4-2-4? Because that wouldn't make sense. Like
you'd keep the order of the wheels, but you just have to know that it was weird. I'm sure that probably existed in some equivalent somehow. I am not familiar with it, but anyway, we're coming in. We don't have our hoppers. We don't have like the Class 48, so we're not everything we own.
Oh yeah, that's true. The hoppers are down at the
they're still down at the smelter, and they will
bring them back and hump them sometime. So interestingly enough, now that we only have one main, we kind of kiboshed the idea of the output track. I think where we last left it, we were talking about maybe doing an outbound line or an inbound.
Yeah, we were, and the spacing didn't really quite work out, and it was a little bit too far removed from the narrow gauge idea, so we're going to just use the inbound track as the outbound track. So it's kind of the go-between between the yard and the main. So if you're lined in this way, you're going to be doing yard speed, you're going to be underneath yard rules and all sorts of stuff like that. But if you're laying the other way, you can just continue on the main track as if nothing else exists.
Right. So the line on our left here would be the main, which would eventually go to the oil and the ironworks and all that stuff.
All that good stuff.
And also continues that way back to the sawmill and all that stuff as well. So it would appear you still have cars to go. We have a super long. This would be what, a lead track is what this would be, or this would be.
So this is your inbound track,
right?
Or inbound outbound or exchange track, right?
All right, we're clear now.
We're all clear, so I'm gonna brake. And then
we still have space for like 10 more cars. This is great.
Beautiful, yeah. So we've simulated the roundhouse and then the flat end of the yard as well on this end. And honestly, we're probably going to want like telegraph huts on both ends of this thing. I mean, this thing's huge.
Oh yeah, that's true. We need a telegraph hut on the other end of this yard.
We would stop these cars, and you might want to go get the Glenbrook ready. And I'll line these switches over here.
Oh no, I wanna live through the whole experience. I don't want to.
Okay.
We're
hold on. So
road engine.
Cut off your cars.
We're gonna cut it off.
Cut off the cars.
You might as well take our road engine, our cursed.
Might as well take Betsy, the whole thing, the whole road engine
yeah.
that has still just like maybe 3/4 of a sneeze of tractive effort now with 2 of them.
Right. So we have 2 options here. I threw down a water tower just because we still do have like the sanding and fuel at the freight depot. Although at some point we should probably move that over to here.
Everything would come here. So on the way out, you like, depending on the way the railroad was set up, you would have lots of different interfaces between mechanical and the true roundhouse, because the roundhouse would be where they're doing like real work on the engines.
Do you like my Y, by the way? Look, I built a Y.
Dude, I like it. And it's on the lead. That's fun. Okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a space here, so I figured it's a Y on the lead. So if you were just turning around and leaving, you would bring your road engine through the Y, turn it around, and then just go right back out before, like, while the other cars are being humped, I guess? I don't know.
Right, okay.
I don't know. I didn't really think it through, but it's there.
We'll do another episode building out the roundhouse and talking about roundhouse and all sorts of those things. But depending on how things are set up, a lot of roundhouses usually had the coal, fuel, water, everything, sand, all right next to the roundhouse. Here. And then they would have like a ready track where engines that were ready to go that had been coaled and watered and everything would be sitting outside if they were, assigned to their next thing.
Wait, so we should build a switch off this track.
We could do that. You don't have to do that. And
presumably we'd only be taking out one engine at a time. Or like
so the roundhouse and for railroads online where servicing doesn't mean anything because the locomotives are just god kings.
They fire up like instantly.
No fuel or water or anything. Yeah, like it doesn't really matter. But for fun we could do it if we want to. Now we need to run to the other side of the yard, and I'm debating it may actually be faster to teleport and then run the other way.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a telegraph at the hump.
Race you.
Okay, you can race. I'm gonna put a telegraph like right at the hump because that kind of makes sense to have one.
Yeah,
right where you're humping.
You need to make sure
you don't realize how far this yard is. Then you realize we're actually like at the roundhouse location. We're halfway to the oil field.
Dude,
so this yard is insane.
Like real train facilities get so big so fast. Just at my shop, the entrance to the shop was controlled by an electronic derail device, so that we couldn't accidentally run out onto the main, and the guys from the main, if the switch was lying the wrong way, wouldn't actually run into the shop and all that stuff.
How does an electronic derail device work? Just put like a stopper up in the track or something?
It's got a little derail clamp that comes over the rail and would knock any wheels off, and it's operated by a switch machine.
It just flips the train.
I mean, it wouldn't flip the train, but it would put it in the dirt, yeah. But when you're talking about accidentally running into buildings and people and dudes that are working on stuff...
It's better to put a train in the dirt.
It's better to put the train in the dirt than to, harm all sorts of people. So, it was protected by that derail. And that derail, if it failed or the electronics on it would break, you'd have to go operate it manually. And it was so far away. You went on a journey to go get to the South Derail at Interbay. I mean, it was like... Good God, man. I don't know the exact distance. It was over 1 kilometer from the office, I would have to bet. And it would take you forever to get there. It was obnoxious.
All right, here we go. I put a telegraph down. I had to face it the right way.
Well, I've got the Tahobro and trussed up the fire. And now I'm running into the inbound-outbound track. And we're going to grab the cars from the rear here. And then we're going to hump them.
So now, if this is where this is where things kind of don't make sense to me. So you're going to grab all these and pull them backwards, but I got to put your probe up.
Yep, you gotta
there
get
we go.
me ready
But
to hump. Yes.
what if
no.
this caboose was something you weren't allowed to hump?
Yeah, so this would have to be set out typically, and a caboose would technically
How would
not be
you
something
how would
that
you
we'd hump.
set this out that you would grab this right now and then just push it onto the main or something, or you'd have another line to put it on?
With our setup, yeah, you'd have to put it on the main basically, but yeah, you'd usually have like multiple inbound tracks like this, so you could stash stuff that couldn't be humped for whatever reason.
And then just bring it all the way to the end where it meets back up with the...
It would be added on the flat switch end, right? With a caboose, I mean, that's a little bit different because the era of cabooses and humps, for their prolificness, did not necessarily overlap. Yes,
Right.
we still have cabooses, and they occasionally see service. And we have more humps now, and there were some rare humps early on, but the caboose would usually be added on at the end. But for other cars that needed to be set out, you just
would
set them back over when you got to them, right? You'd be at the base of the hump and stick them out.
So in this, you would have to pull the caboose out, put it on the main, hump the entire train, and then grab the caboose and push it somewhere.
Yeah, and realistically, we probably should have added another lane, but I didn't think of that in the moment. So, and it doesn't really matter for Railroads Online because
we
there's
can
nothing
do this
that we
so
can't
quickly.
hump.
It's like yeah.
I have no idea. I wonder if we can fit the whole train over the hump.
I was looking when we were coming around the corner, and it was close, but I felt like we could.
Okay, well, you
This would
can
be a
see all
good
the cars.
test
I
of
can't.
the
so.
length of this lead track.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. The drill track's got to be pretty long, and that's why you want it separate from the main. If we were backing out on the main right now, we would be blocking everybody's traffic. So now trains can run past us while we do our switching.
You have 3 cars left.
Okay, I got plenty of space here. I got
now
another
clear.
I got another 5 at least back here.
All right, so I push you onto the hump now.
Yeah, you line us to the hump, and then you're going to want to line whatever the first cut of cars is to whatever track makes
it's
sense
cordwood.
to you. And then I'll start shoving up, and then
Okay, so
if
let's just put the cordwood on the 3rd track probably.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Because it can
Second
go on
or
its own.
third.
The tracks, remember, they're going to get the longest is on the farthest left, and the shortest is on the farthest right. Actually, I'm going to put cordwood to the 4th track. So the longer lengths of cars, like the planks and stuff, we're going to actually 3rd track because it'll be pretty long eventually. Like probably want stake flats and logs on the first set.
Stake for the first for sure. Logs or cordwood on second. Probably 50-50 on
Yeah,
that,
we'll put the caboose on like the far right track, and then eventually we'll have hoppers somewhere in the middle there. So I'm gonna have to like ride this cordwood thing and break it, right? Because it'll.
Yeah, I guess we are very manual in this endeavor. Normally, you would need more people to do this if we were, without having the automatic brakes and everything.
Right. So the automatic brakes would be built into the track for hump yards.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Yeah. And they're electronically controlled and everything, and they automatically slow the car down so that it won't hit too hard. When
Okay,
it
so
does
I should
couple in.
actually have cut these already then.
You can cut them at any time, really.
Because they'll eventually take off on their own.
They will.
Which they're already doing. They're already moving. Okay, so you can we can just wait
I'll
there.
Stop then.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is awesome. They're actually. Hopefully this is a long enough hill.
In the modern day, there'd be a couple guys standing at the top of the hump pulling the pins of the cars as they roll over.
Right.
So that one guy
while
on each
they're
side
moving
can check things out and everything while they're moving, and they just keep it going. And theoretically, ideally, usually these days they're actually run with a remote control locomotive, which is a whole other subject. But you just
they're still manually
pins
decoupling like in between cars while they're.
There's no way to automatically do that. Yeah. So. Well, that's cool.
Right.
It looks like you've already made it all the way in the lane, so you can just stop those, and we'll get the next.
Yeah,
set
I still
going.
have a ton of lane to go, but yeah, like I'll just stop them here.
Doesn't matter wherever you stop.
No, I guess ideally the next set of cars we hump, we won't even have to put brakes on because they'll just hit these set of cars.
They hit these, yeah,
and
exactly.
Stop. That's hilarious.
Hopefully not so fast that they cause a derailment, but that's why the automatic brakes became a thing.
Dude, this is awesome. I can't believe the humping actually works. It's so great. We need more cars now. We need just like $10 million, and then we can buy like 100 cars and hump
definitely,
all the cars.
what's the saying? You ate with your eyes, not your mouth, or something. When you're like, I grabbed too much food. Yeah,
steak flats. This will be lane number 1.
We built too much yard.
Actually, I guess steak flats. You know what? If we're doing it according to car tiers, steak flats would be number 2.
Yeah, but I mean, you could do it by tier, or you could do it by.
Yeah, we're gonna put them in number 1. We're gonna have more steak flats. Did you already cut them?
I did not. No.
Oh, they're definitely ready to be rolling.
I can see that. I can come up and cut the cars. That's fine.
It's I
Or you
got it. I feel like we're just losing a little bit of speed. That's all. Look at them go.
Yeah, that's true. We are losing a little bit of that gravity potential, but
Yeah,
it's fun. They'll still roll far enough. It's a 10% grade.
yeah. I
And
worry about the
you're
rolling
standing on the
friction.
last one, so you added an extra 200 pounds right there.
True.
Conductor man's a big dude.
200 pounds of man weight.
200 pounds of John Railroadson.
Yeah, that'll really. It's actually crazy to me that this works though. It's so cool.
Yeah,
I think you gotta cut them before you start pushing up while they're still, because then as soon as they clear the hump, they'll
just go.
Yeah, they'll
and get
just
the
go
max
as
speed.
fast as
Okay.
possible.
So I'll go back and I'll cut off the log bunks here
Yeah,
off the caboose, and then I'll just shove, and we'll.
because these will make it. It's just
when
they're
you're
not
ready.
going to be very far into the.
Yeah, and
We
I
have a
guess
lot of
ideally,
lane to go.
ideally you'd get to the other lanes so that it's faster to get them later, but I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Nah, I mean we're still gonna have to assemble the train. We kind of are gonna have to.
Wait! Railroad's online.
What? What?
No.
Did you derail?
No. What?
Did you
I
derail?
came back and the Tahobro's tender is just in the dirt all by
Oh.
itself.
That's interesting.
Does not compute.
As long as the engine's still on the line, you can just drive it forward. That's fine.
It doesn't matter, but it's just like I came back and it was like everything was fine. Why? Why did it do this? Okay. Anyway,
Because it knew there was too much humping going on. This video is just
the
it's
tender
got-
could not handle the dad jokes.
Yeah, so much humping involved. It was just oh right, I gotta set the direction here so we don't just jam.
Yeah,
them
line
into
us in because I'm shoving. So
All right, you're shoving. I'm gonna put you to the second lane here because we're all organized. Dude, this is sick. This is actually the coolest thing that we've ever done. This is
this is actually really fun.
it's really stupid that this is like for empties and not for full cars, but it's like it's
Right.
really cool that it works and like like we can just let these hump now into that. That's awesome. It's actually the coolest thing ever.
Dude, okay, so we had the idea, and it was like, okay, we're gonna do that, and this will be whatever. And in my head, I was like, yeah, okay, it'll be cool, but I mean, it's gonna be
This is a
whatever.
much better hump, by the way. Not to.
But
look
this is
Yeah.
actually. Oh yeah, it's got so much more speed.
Yeah, it'll make it all the way to the end this time.
But dude, like this actually turned out to be so much cooler than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, it actually
This
works.
is-
It's kind of
This is
impressive.
actually really neat.
All right, so hump the caboose. We got to go to the far. I'll just
Yep.
put the brake on this.
Yep.
I'm only
running
putting the
back.
furthest car brake on all of these, so the next set of cars humping in will eventually slow down. But
Perfect. Yeah, let me cut the caboose, and then I'll kick it over.
so would they build a hump yard on narrow gauge? Like, is there a narrow gauge hump?
There was. Okay, so anytime we put the qualifiers on, it's like, okay, there's gonna be one. I'm sure there's one somewhere, particularly when you talk about narrow gauge being anything narrow of standard gauge. So like a lot of countries have narrow gauge that's like 3 foot 6 inch, but that's actually their standard gauge.
Right.
So I'm sure there is one, but in like the spirit of American narrow gauge railroading and stuff, there wasn't, and there really wasn't traffic to justify it. I kept bouncing off of the points of the switch, and see, look, it derailed the tender again, and it re-railed itself. It's fine. I'm gonna punt the caboose into orbit.
Did we accidentally like somehow?
I don't know what's going on. There must be two splines there somehow, because
Well,
it is doing
delete it
some
and
very
fix it.
strange things, and I've derailed
you gotta-
Tahobro on the hump.
Nice, you derailed the Tahobro on the hump, and the caboose is not going to stop. It's going to the right lane.
It'll eventually stop. I mean, it'll probably stop when it's too far away. I'm
I'll
gonna try
fix
and
this
catch it.
Tahobro issue.
I'm gonna try and catch the caboose.
And then we'll bring it back down. What is going on here with this?
I was trying to say something intelligent about narrow gauge humps, and then Railroads Online-isms happened. It's fine.
No, it's this is a very interesting. I'll delete that switch too and reline it.
There's got to be something. Oh god, this is.
I think it's operator
gonna,
error is the issue, to be honest.
All right, well, I'm gonna leave Betsy kind of on the drill track on this end because I don't know if we have anything else for
I'm
her.
coming through with the Glenbrook. I'm gonna go through the Y on the track.
Oh, okay. Well,
'Cause
then I
gotta turn around somehow.
I need to get out of your way then.
Well, you could follow me
will-
through the Y, and we could move two engines around. I don't really know if that's common, but it is very possible.
You could.
Glenbrook
Betsy's already
without
facing
anything
the
is
right
very
way.
fast.
She's speedy. I think it's the fastest engine in the game. I'm not sure. It's that or the
Like without
Cookie
speed
280,
limits,
I
the
think.
fastest. Like if there was
Yeah,
no...
without speed. Well, no, not realistically. Actually, physically in the game, the fastest. I think. Though the Cookie 280 apparently does better because the tender is less prone to derail. I think it's a friend of the channel, Toltree, I believe, or maybe it's somebody else. I can't remember who. Somebody has done speed tests, and they did drag races with all the locomotives to see which the fastest. And I want to say Glenbrook was the fastest, but I'm struggling to remember right now. And if I got the name wrong, I'm going to be crucified. It's fine.
Once there's no speed limits anywhere in the game, I really want to do that. Drag race all the engines,
Right.
make a quarter mile, and see what they can do. But with speed limits, it feels kind of silly because it's like you're not really drag racing them. You're just testing what the speed limits are set to.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. I really want to see, like, the 0 to 60. I feel like Betsy would just tear out of there, but then
right, itty bitty drivers, but
right,
then
but then would get
fast.
to a top speed that just no one can, like, everyone will just pass.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the name of the game. It's small drivers.
But it would be really cool. All right, so we're
Look at
turning
the
around on the
Glenbrook
Y.
turn around and
I don't know why
and-
we are, but we are.
well, Glenbrook's got to be facing the next direction for whatever our next adventure is. It's the one road engine we have that's worth a darn. Sorry, Montezuma, I love you, but
Yeah, we
small.
didn't make any money this episode, but we built a hump yard, so, like,
Yeah, look, we're still broke, and we still can't really run trains up the coal mine because we're
Actually,
broke.
I'm not that broke. I have $4,400, so we're
That's
almost there.
not broke, but it's
think
not
next
by a climax
episode
yet.
we do some iron, some double heading iron. 8 cars of iron, double head it. I feel like we'll be
Okay.
It's great. Every episode now we get to end the episode with some humping. So, like,
Dude, I
just,
love ending episodes with humping.
That's just
It
great.
brings
Every
a smile
episode
to my face.
Oh my god, look at that. So wait, so Betsy would be the engine now that assembles trains, pushes them out onto this main behind us now.
Yeah, I mean that's where I left it. I mean, we don't have to do that.
No,
but
that
it is
actually
a
makes
place that
sense.
it
So
can
Betsy
work.
could assemble the train. We'd come out of the roundhouse. Betsy pushes the train onto our butt, and then we take off with it.
Yep, that's the way it go.
And they're
we
empties.
can start with that next time. That's gonna be awesome, dude.
Dude, this is sick. This is actually looks really, really good.
Yeah, it's definitely working out really well. And I really genuinely like watching it happen and seeing cars get humped. Like, I didn't expect me to get excited about it. I was gonna be like, oh, it's Railroads Online. That's pretty cool.
Dude, I
But
always
it's
get
actually,
excited about humping. Okay,
It's
humping
genuinely
cars
really
is,
cool, man.
Is
This
wicked.
yard is
And, like, I love parallel lines in Railroads Online when you can build perfectly parallel
it is
yards.
a
It's just-
very strong satisfaction for sure.
Yeah, and I love the symmetrical switching at the front. The fact that it's all splits of 2, like it's a binary tree that splits off, so it's always
Right.
one of 2 directions. That's fantastic.
That's the way to do it, and that's
But yeah.
that and that's all the switches. It's great. This turned out so cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad this idea worked.
yeah, this is ridiculous. But now we can hump empties and then pick them up, reassemble our trains, and then leave. Have our roundhouse at the other end. We'll have to. I'll probably. Well, I guess when we do the roundhouse episode, we'll have to move, like, all the fuel and stuff. I put a water tower there, but we'll have to move, all the fuel and sanding and
Get all that moved and
figure
we'll
out how to build a
figure out-
roundhouse properly that isn't just a ton of engine sheds all slapped around.
Yeah. Those are cursed. I mean, I get it. That's all we have, but they're still cursed.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if we had that many engine sheds, it would just be a bunch of straight tracks with, like, a bunch of switches going to them.
Yeah, which those also existed. So anyway,
On a line. Yeah. But anyway, let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. This is amazing. Dude, this hill looks sick. The hump actually looks sick.
yeah, it's really cool, and it looks pretty representative of what they are. So I'm really pleased with this.
Yeah, no, this is cool. But yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Check out Hyce's channel, link in the description. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.
Check it all next time. Laters.